Hey, all. Today we are going to start our SOL review, and some of this should look familiar because we have already sort of started this in class. But this is somewhere where you can refer back to, watch as many times as you need to. You can ask me for help on any of these questions while you're working through it. But please do take your time on these. This will help you use Desmos as a useful tool for the test. So we've talked about sliders already this year, where if we want to evaluate an expression, we can type into Desmos what we want a letter to be equal to, and then we can type the expression into Desmos, and it will evaluate for us. It will plug the numbers in for us. Some things to note, which are on here as well, is that we can't use X and Y to do sliders as lowercase letters because it's going to want to graph something. And when we're using a slider, we're not really wanting to graph. And so if you want to use X and Y, for example, in this problem, you can capitalize the X and Y. So the alternative to changing X and Y to A and B, which is what the person did that did this problem, they changed X to A and Y to B. The alternative would be to make them capital X and capital Y. I don't know if you can tell that's a capital Y. So you choose which method you prefer better, either changing lowercase x and y to capital X and Y or assigning them a different letter. But either way, if you use these sliders correctly, you can have the calculator plug the numbers in for you. And whoops, not there. These are the numbers. They'll plug them into the expression and will evaluate it for you. So in this one, when x is -2, y is 3, and z is 5, then this expression will be equal to -48. And so you don't have to do any calculating as long as you enter the information in correctly. So I am going to do a couple of those with you. I've set my Desmos up. I'm going to, the way I do it is I type the expression in first. So I'm going to type this in first, and then it's going to ask me to add sliders. So I've typed the expression in. If you want to know where to find this cube root, we have this button down here that says functions. The square root is down here. In order to get the cube root, if we hit functions and we scroll down until we see that square root symbol with a little n in front of it, if we click that, I'll show you. It's going to put my cursor to the left of my square root symbol, and I can type a 3, and that's going to make it a cube root. And then I can type in whatever I wanted to put there. So again, I'm in functions. I scroll down all the way to the bottom, and it's this button here, and it'll ask me. I could type any number in there. If we have a 7th root, but we won't get there. So once I type my expression in, I'm going to double check and make sure I have it in correctly. It's going to ask me if I want to put sliders in there. I'm going to click all, and it's going to create a slider for each of my variables. And whatever number is here is going to be what my expression is based on the values for A, B, and C. So I need to go change them, A to 8, B to 16. And you can just delete and type them in there. You don't have to actually slide them. And then C is -4. Make sure you're putting the numbers in the right spots. You can see since C shows up in the expression before B, that it's going to be listed in the slider before B. So just make sure you're putting the correct numbers in there. And then once you do have the expression incorrectly, you have the values incorrectly, you are going to get an answer of 35. And that is the correct answer here. I didn't have to do any adding, subtracting, multiplying, square rooting, cube rooting, no orders of operations here. As long as I can set my Desmos up correctly, it will help me find the correct answer. This is similar. I'm going to put this cube root, this value into my Desmos calculator to figure out what it's equal to as a decimal. And then I want to know for which number, 35, 245, 875, or 1,715. If I plug them in here for X, which is going to be equal to this one. So I'm going to set up a slider here where I change X to A. I'm going to change it to A. If you want to change it to capital X, that's totally fine too. So I've typed my cube root in here that I'm looking to find what's it equal to. I set up my expression here with A instead of X, and then I'm going to add a slider. And I'm just going to go test out the answer choices. If I change A to 35, is it going to make it my answer the same as this one? So if I change A to 35, I'm looking to make this decimal equal to this decimal. Well, that's not it. So let's change it to 245. That's not it either. I need to make it bigger. 875. When I type 875 in for A, it plugs it in and it gives me the same decimal as I would get when I have 5 cube root of 7. And so that means that's my answer. And so this is just a matter of using Desmos as a tool, knowing how to use it to find out the information you want. We can also use sliders to find equivalent expressions, which is, I guess, what we just did. So here I have this expression, and I want to know which one of these is equal to it. And so you can change X and Y to capital X and capital Y if you want, or you can change them to A and B, which is what was done in this problem. So we changed X to A and Y to B. Just make sure you're consistent when you're changing X. You change every X to A and you change every Y to B. And so then what we do here is we put the original expression in there, and then we can put the answer choices in. And then we're going to change our sliders to any numbers we want. The suggestion here is to not use numbers like 0, 1, or 2. Sometimes that's going to give you some false information. So they use numbers like 3, 4, and 5. Numbers that aren't too big, but that are bigger than 0, 1, and 2. And it doesn't matter what they are. What's going to happen is the calculator is going to plug those numbers in for each of these expressions. And the place where our original matches one of the answer choices is going to tell us that those are the equivalent expressions. And so this takes a little bit of work plugging this stuff into Desmos, but what it does is it does a lot of this calculating for you that would be even more work and that would allow for more places to make errors. So as long as you can use this tool, you can use it to help you. So I've gone and I've typed this expression into my calculator, but I've changed X to A, as you can see here. I always type my original in first, and then it's going to ask me if I want a slider, and I will make this a slider for A. And then I typed all of these in here, remembering to change X to A for all of them. And then I want to follow that rule that it's set up there is I don't want to use A as 0, 1, or 2. You can see here I have, if A is 1, I have two answers that are both 12 and two answers that are both 5. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 3. And now I'm looking for which answer choice matches my original expression, 1.29 with this nasty decimal times 10 to the negative 8. I can go down here and I can find that this one matches 5 over a to the 18th. And that means that this is my equivalent expression. So you can see there how when I had a equals 1, it gave me some misinformation. So I want to always make sure that when I'm using these sliders, don't use 0, 1, or 2 as your numbers. Similar thing here, I want an equivalent expression. So I'm going to go ahead and type this into Desmos. When I did that, I changed X to A and Y to B. You can change it to capital X and capital Y, but that might be confusing. And then I type in all of my answer choices. changing X to A and Y to B, making sure you're consistent. So when I typed this in, it asked me if I wanted sliders. I said, yes, please. You can see that when A is 1 and B is 1, those are the numbers we do not want to use. All of these things are equal to each other. So this is going to throw us off. So I'm going to go ahead and change A to 3 and B to 4. And you can see how now I have some differences. So here's my original expression, and this is the value I get when A is actually 2.9 and B is 4. That's okay. So I'm going to go and find the ones that are the same. I happen to have two of them that are the same. And so this question is asking for the simplest form. Usually what simplest means is smallest underneath the square root symbol. So here I have 20 underneath the square root symbol and 5. 5 is smaller. That makes it simpler. So we are going to choose this option, choice D, as our simplest form. B and D have the same value, but D is the simplest form. I have two more here. Here's one where I'm not really making any sliders, but I'm just showing you how we can use Desmos to help us solve this problem or find the answer to this problem. I want to know what this cube root is in simplest form. And so all I'm going to do is type the cube root into Desmos and type in all the answers and see which one matches. Remember that simplest form again means that usually the square root symbol is going to be a smaller number. And so when I go type all these in, again, a reminder to find that cube root, we hit functions and we go all the way to the bottom. Maybe I'll write that down here in case anybody's looking at the notes that I post on Canvas. Click functions, go to the bottom, find the one that looks like that. That's how you can get your cube root. And then you can just type the number 3 when it puts its cursor in front. I'm going to look for which answer choice matches the original, so 15.119. There's two of them. And so what I need to do is pick the one that's simplest. That's the one that has the smaller number underneath the cube root. And so my answer choice here is 12 cube root 2. I have one more here. This is one that we should be able to do by hand. This is one where we're multiplying square roots. When you multiply square roots, you can multiply the numbers in front of the square root. So 2 times 4 is 8. You can multiply the numbers that are inside the square root. 2 times 3 is 6. And that will give you the product. In a case like this, if you don't know how to do that, what you can do is kind of plug in the numbers and sort of guess and check. So I typed 4 root 2 times 2 root 3, and I get this decimal. And so I can just start plugging numbers in. So I'll choose the first two, 2 and 4. And that doesn't give me the same answer. And so you could keep playing with this until you get the answer. Probably not the best way. This is one where it's probably best to know how to actually multiply these. But in a pinch, you can always use Desmos to guess and check here. And so, of course, this is a drag and drop problem. We would drag the 8 up to here and the 6 over to there. So as always, I have some practice for you to do. Please do these. Please ask for help if you get stuck. Use the methods we just talked about to help you with these. If you're practicing how to use this tool, you'll be able to use it on test day. Take your time. And as always, if you need help, ask.